Welcome friends to this course on understanding episodist drama. We are in week 6 and this is going to be lecture number 1. Today we'll discuss a very famous episodist playwright, John Janney. John Janney was a very famous poet, novelist and playwright from France. Janney was born on December 19, 1910 in Paris to a single mother who abandoned him shortly after his birth. He spent his childhood in foster care and reform schools where his experiences of isolation and punishment deeply influenced his writing. As a teenager, he turned to petty crime and spent several years in prison. Janney's literary career began during his imprisonment, where he wrote his first novel, Our Lady of the Flowers. His work caught the attention of influential figures like Jean-Paul Sartre, who wrote an extensive analysis of Janney's life and works. Janney died on April 15, 1986 in Paris. Some of the major plays by Janney are The Maids, The Balcony, The Blacks and The Screens. The Maids is a psychological exploration of servitude and rebellion. We'll discuss this play in great detail today. The Balcony was a surrealist exploration on the themes of power, morality and societal exclusion. The play was first performed in the year 1957 and was set in a brothel. The brothel is a microcosm of society where characters from all walks of life appear and they reveal their inner fantasies. The Blacks takes place in a ceremonial trial where a group of black actors stage the mock murder of a white woman performed for an audience that is symbolically white. As the actors reenact the murder, they simultaneously critique and mock the oppression and dehumanization inflicted by white colonial powers. The Screens offered a commentary on the Algerian War of Independence. All these plays by Janney are reflections on human life and human society. They espouse the dramatic aesthetics of Janney as a playwright. Talking about his dramaturgy and philosophy, Martin Esslin in his book The Theatre of the Absurd writes, and I quote, Janney's theatre, the image of man caught in a maze of mirrors, trapped by his own distorted reactions, trying to find the way to make contact with others he can see around him, but being rudely stopped by barriers of glass. His plays are concerned with expressing his own feeling of helplessness and solitude when confronted with the despair and loneliness of man caught in the hall of mirrors of the human condition. So it is clear that the plays of Janney are about false mirror that human beings have and how human beings, because of those false mirror, have a distorted perception of reality. Through his plays, Janney questions the existential loneliness of man and how human beings are suffering despite their will to happiness. Let us examine Janney's play The Maids to understand his dramaturgy and philosophy. The play was first performed in the year 1947 and it was inspired by the infamous murder of an employer by Papin sisters. The play revolves around two sisters, Solange and Claire, who work as maids for an affluent woman referred to as Madame. While Madame is away, the sisters engage in ritualistic role-playing, alternating between pretending to be Madame and themselves. Their enactments are filled with both adoration and contempt. Let us examine the opening conversation of the play to find out what this play is about. The play opens with a woman standing in front of his mirror. It appears she is the madam of the house, although later we would come to know that she is not the madam, she is Claire, who is pretending to be madam. Claire is standing with her back to the dressing table and she says, "Those eternal gloves, I have told you time and again to leave them in the kitchen. You probably hope to seduce the milkman with them. No, no, don't lie. That won't get you anywhere. Hang them over the sink. When will you understand this room is not to be sullied? Everything, yes, everything that comes out of the kitchen is spit. So stop it. And during this speech, Solange has been playing with a pair of rubber gloves and observing her gloved hands, which are alternately spread fan-wise, folded in the form of a bouquet. Claire says, make yourself quite at home, preen like a peacock. Above all, don't hurry, we have plenty of time. Solange says, I beg madam's pardon, I was preparing her tea. Claire says, lay out my things, the white spangled dress, the fan, the emeralds. Solange says, very well madam, all madam's jewels. Claire says, put them out and I shall choose. And of course my patent leather slippers, the ones you have had your eye on for years. So it becomes clear that Claire and Solange, who are two sisters, they are enacting the role of madam and the servant. Solange has become Claire and Claire has become madam. The question is, why do they become someone else? Why Claire becomes the madam and why Solange becomes Claire? Explaining the meaning of this episode, Jean-Paul Sartre writes, each of the two maids plays in turn at being madam. When the curtain rises, Claire is standing in front of dressing table of her mistress. She is experimenting with madam's gestures and language. For Genet, this is an actual incantation. We shall see later on that by imitating these gestures of his superior, the domestic treacherously draws him into himself and becomes saturated with him. There is nothing surprising in this, since madam herself is fake. Madam who plays a distinction at her passion for Monsieur and who dreams of drawing into herself the soul of a whore who follows her pimp to jail. According to Sartre, Genet wants to foreground the fakeness of human beings through this ritualistic act of role-playing. Don't you think so? Human beings are constantly role-playing. We play our roles as fathers, as brothers, as mothers, sisters, sons, daughters. Are we true to ourselves? Are we not pretending? Are we not faking ourselves? That becomes an important question which Genet tries to explore in this play. Of course, Claire is faking to be madam, but Sartre suggests madam is also fake. Thereby, we realize that all human beings are faking their lives. They are something else and they want to become something else, yet they are faking to be someone else. These characters indulge in mundane conversations, and because Claire is playing the role of madam, she also foregrounds the loneliness that madam is experiencing. Whether an expression of her loneliness or madam's loneliness is very difficult to say. Claire says, hand me the dress. Oh, I am so alone and friendless. I can see in your eyes that you loathe me. You don't care what happens to me. Although Solange replies, I follow you everywhere, I love you. Now, the question that arises before us, why is madam lonely? Madam is wealthy, madam is powerful, madam has love, yet she, Claire says, is lonely. How can this lonely be lessened? Whether love of someone can lessen the loneliness of madam? And that's why Solange says, I will follow you everywhere because I love you. But we have to understand whether Solange's love for madam is genuine or not. You would remember our discussion on master-slave dialectics from the previous classes, where you would remember that there is a constant conflict between self and other. Each self tries to dominate the other. There is a trial by death in which one self has to submit to the other self. The self which submits becomes a slave, and the self which dominates becomes the master. In this play too, we can see that master-slave dialectics, although the characters are females. Claire and Solange, the two sisters, they have accepted their fates as servants, as slaves. Yet they are frustrated, yet they are annoyed and they want to revolt. They want to rebel, which they cannot. And therefore, they play pretending to be madam. Their ritualistic role playing is their desire for rebellion. The play progresses, and we come to know that one of them has written a letter to the police, and because of that, Monsieur has been jailed. He has been jailed because they have written in that letter that Monsieur was involved in petty crimes. Monsieur, you would remember, is the lover of Madam. Why have they done this act? What do they want from Madam and the Monsieur? Solange and Claire discuss, and let us read. Solange said, "You see straight through me, you divine my thoughts." Claire says, "The time coming when no longer a maid, you become vengeance itself." But Claire, don't forget, Claire, are you listening? Don't forget, it was the maid who hatched schemes of vengeance, and I, Claire, you are not listening? Solange says, I am listening. Claire says, and I contain within me both vengeance and the maid, and give them a chance for life, a chance for salvation. Claire, it is a burden. It is terribly painful to be a mistress, to contain all the springs of hatred, to be the dunghill on which you grow. You want to see me naked every day. I am beautiful, am I not? And the desperation of my love makes me even more so, but you have no idea what strength I need. You might have noticed that Claire is Madam now, and Solange is Claire. Although you would come to know later that Madam is kind, yet they want some kind of vengeance from Madam. While playing the role of Madam, Claire becomes aware that Madam suffers with hatred for these two servants. However, she also realizes that it is equally difficult to be a mistress. Because when one becomes a mistress, one has to experience the springs of hatred which lies within. One has to experience one's soul in its nakedness. Like Claire, who is unhappy being a mistress, Solange is also unhappy being Claire or a servant. She says, I am ready. I am tired of being an object of disgust. I hate you too. I despise you. I hate your scented bosom, your ivory bosom, your golden thighs, your amber feet. I hate you. And she spits on the red dress that belongs to Madam. Solange says, yes, my proud beauty, you think you can always do just as you like? You think you can deprive me forever of the beauty of the sky? That you can choose your perfumes and powders, your nail polish and silk and velvet and lace and deprive me of them? That you can steal the milkman from me? Admit it. Admit about the milkman. His youth and vigor excite you, don't they? Admit about the milkman, for Solange says, to hell with you. Claire says, Claire, Claire. Solange here reveals the hatred which both Claire and Solange have for Madam. Madam is beautiful, which they are not, and therefore they hate everything about Madam, about her clothes, about her beauty, and about other objects that she has. They accuse her of depriving them of humanity. Here we have to understand that these accusations are quite normal and ordinary. We have to understand that human beings suffer with jealousy. We have to understand that this jealousy may exist even between a master and a servant, although the servant is bound to be docile and submissive out of his fear, which may also be termed as love or respect. What Jenny suggests, that true communication, authentic communication between two human beings is almost an impossibility. Even if you try to treat someone with love and respect, it's not necessary that they will treat you with love and respect. The reason being that human beings are constantly faking. They fake love, they fake respect to hide their inner jealousies. Solange and Claire, they are so unhappy with their Madam that they want to murder her. In fact, you would know that Solange had tried to murder Madam by strangulating her, but she has failed. Solange describes her attempted murder to her sister Claire, and she says, "But only to be of further service to madam. I am going back to my kitchen, back to my gloves, the smell of my teeth, to my belching sink. You have your flowers, I my sink. I am the maid. You at least, you cannot defile me. But before I go back, I am going to finish the job." Suddenly, an alarm clock goes off. Solange stops. The two actresses, in a state of agitation, run together. They huddle and listen already. Claire says, "Let us hurry. Madam will be back. Help me. It is over already and you did not get to the end." Solange says, "The same thing happens every time. And it is all your fault. You are never ready. I cannot finish you off." Claire says, "We waste too much time with the preliminaries." So, Solange wants to murder madam because madam's life is beautiful. Here you also have to understand that Solange's life is miserable because she herself considers that her life is ugly. She says, "You have your flowers, I will have my sink." This jealousy of Solange and Claire for madam is so strong that they try to murder her. But whether this murder is literal or metaphorical, whether they really try to murder madam or they are just faking their desire to murder madam, whether they are play acting and pretending to murder madam, these questions become very important questions. Explaining the metaphoric significance of their desire for the murder of madam, Jean-Paul Sartre writes, and I quote, "What is played every evening is the murder of madam, a murder always being interrupted, always uncompleted. It is a case of committing the worst. Madam is benevolent, madam is kind. They will kill their benefactress precisely because she has been good to them. The act will be imaginary, since evil is the imagination. But even in the imaginary, it is faked in advance. The maids know that they will not have time enough to get to the crime." For Sartre, the murder is fictitious, as Solange and Claire are pretending to murder madam. You might have noticed yourself that at the moment when this is happening, Claire is the madam. So whether Solange is going to murder madam or Solange is going to murder Claire, the boundary between Claire and madam is blurred. Claire is madam and madam is Claire. So it does not become evident that they want to commit the true murder of fake madam or the fake murder of true Claire. So we see that Claire and Solange are tormented by their inner jealousies. Their desire to murder madam becomes more difficult because sometimes madam is kind and good to them. Claire says, "So you are scared now? The slightest gesture makes you feel like a murderer trying to slip away by the service stairway." Solange says, "Go on, be sarcastic, work me up. Go on, be sarcastic. Nobody loves me, nobody loves us." Claire says, "She does, she loves us. She is kind, madam is kind, madam adores us." Solange says, "She loves us the way she loves her armchair. Not even that much like her bidet, rather like her pink enamel toilet seat. And we cannot love one another. Filth," Solange says, "does not love filth. Do you think I am going to put up with that? I am going to keep playing the game and then at night go back to my folding cot? The game, we will even be able to go on with it. And if I have to stop spitting on someone who calls me Claire, I'll simply choke. My spurt of saliva is my spray of diamonds." So madam's kindness is visible to Claire. However, Solange does not consider madam's kindness to be kindness. She considers that madam treats them as an object, and that's why she is filled with disgust and repulsion for madam. However, this hatred that Solange and Claire have for madam is not their individual hatred. It is the existential hatred. It is the existential envy which one self has for the other self. Not that they can not love madam, they can also not love each other. Solen says, I want to help you, I want to comfort you, but I know I disgust you. I am repulsive to you, and I know it because you disgust me. When slaves love one another, it is not love. And Claire also says, and me, I am sick of seeing my image thrown back at me via mirror, like a bad smell. You are my bad smell. Well, I am ready to bite. I will have my crown and I shall stroll about the apartment. So, Solange and Claire foreground the paradoxical nature of human existence. Despite Solange's desire to comfort Claire, she cannot, because Claire would find Solange to be disgusting. Solange seems to suggest that one slave cannot love another slave. A slave has to love his or her master alone. Like Solange, Claire too is unhappy with Madame and her own self. She does not want to see her own reflection in her mirror, because the moment she looks into the mirror, she realizes that she is leading an inauthentic life, what Sartre would call bad faith. Claire and Solange's role playing in the play is a form of bad faith. They engage in elaborate fantasies where they momentarily adopt the identity of Madame, pretending to be Madame who oppresses them. This role playing allows them to escape the painful reality of their lives as maids. However, we have to understand that they are suffering from bad faith. Sartre has argued that bad faith arises when a person tries to flee from the anxiety of freedom and responsibility by adopting false roles or identities. Don't you think? In the play, both Solange and Claire have adopted false roles or false identities. They are embodiment of Sartrean bad faith. At the end of the play, Claire decides that she would murder Madame as she has found that Solange has failed. She decides that she would serve poisoned tea to Madame, and after taking poisoned tea, Madame would die. Claire wants to murder Madame because in her mind, Madame hates servants. Claire says, I said the insults, let them come, let them unfurl, let them drown me, for as you well know, I loathe servants, a vile of odious breed, I loathe them. They are not of the human race, servants ooze. They are a foul effluvium, drifting through our rooms and hallways, seeping into us, entering our mouths, corrupting us. I vomit you. Genet wants to represent the class hierarchies of his times. He wants to show how servants are being treated as subhumans. He wants to stage how servants are deprived of their individual identities, how their desires, dreams, fantasies are wiped out from the social system. The two sisters' intense envy, resentment, and desire to murder Madame are not just about personal animosity, but they represent larger existential and societal issues. The maid's hatred of Madame is tied to their own sense of powerlessness and their desire for autonomy. Madame represents both the object of their resentment and the reflection of their own lack of self-definition. Madame belongs to upper class. Therefore, these working class maids want to be Madame, although they hate to be Madame. Their relationship with Madame is a projection of their own inner turmoil, how they are suffering within because of societal structures which do not permit any expression of their subliminal desires. Solange rightly says that everybody is listening to us, but nobody will hear us. They have to live invisible lives as being servants. Nobody would understand their pain, their suffering, their problems, their anxieties, and so on. At the end of the play, they reenact the ritual of role playing. This time, Solange becomes Madame and Claire becomes Solange. While they have been fantasizing about murdering Madame, the play ends with Claire drinking the poisoned tea and dying. It appears at the end that Claire is dead. The play ends with a violent cathartic moment. Claire seems to be dead, and Solange comes on the stage and speaks the final words. She says, "The orchestra is playing brilliantly. The attendant is raising the red velvet curtain. He bows. Madame is descending into the stairs. Her furs brush against green plants. Madame steps into the car. Monsieur is whispering sweet nothings in her ear. She would like to smile, but she is dead. She rings the bell. The porter yawns. He opens the door. Madame goes up the stairs. She enters her apartment, but Madame is dead. Her two maids are alive. They have just risen up, free from Madame's icy form. All the maids were present at her side, not they themselves, but rather the hellish agony of their names, and all that remains of them to float about. Madame's airy crops is the delicate perfume of the holy maidens, which they were in secret. We are beautiful, joyous, drunk, and free." So the play ends not with the murder or death of Madame, but with the death of Claire, although it does not become clear whether Claire is really dead or she is play acting. Sartre says that this play is about deceptions, how human beings deceive others and deceive themselves. In the play, Solange and Claire, they are deceiving Madame, but not only Madame, but also themselves. Let me quote Sartre to further understand what is the main argument of the play. Sartre says, "When the mirage vanishes, it reveals true stones. When the deceptive appearances in the play are dispelled, they reveal in their place other appearances. The fake Madame becomes Claire again, the fake maid, the fake woman, the fake Claire becomes Solange again, the fake servant. At this moment, the spectator has first the demoniacal intuition of nothingness, that is, being is revealed to be nothing. But as appearance is usually effaced in the presence of being, the illusions which vanish leave him with the illusion that is being which replaces them. Suddenly, the pantomime of a young male who pretends to be a woman seems to him to be the truth. It is as if he suddenly understood that only true thing is play acting, that the only real women are men, and so on. Being has been revealed as non-being, and thereupon non-being becomes being." So Sartre indicates that the Maids is about play acting. Perhaps it has Shakespearean echoes, who has said, "The world is a stage and all human beings are players." All human beings are play acting. We play out our jealousies, our desires, our dreams, our anguishes, and so on. But are these desires, jealousies, moments of love, hatred, and anguish that we have real? Perhaps not. Sartre rightly suggests that this play is about being and non-being. This play is about appearance and reality. What appears to be real is unreal, and what unreal is also real. The play dramatizes the fakeness of the maids, but also the fakeness of Madame. Genet seems to critique how hypocrite human beings are, how constantly they fake themselves to others and also to themselves. Sartre says, when we see Solange and Claire in the presence of Madame, they don't seem real. Fake submission, fake tenderness, fake respect, fake gratitude. The entire behavior is lie. We are led to believe that his falsifying comes from their fake relationship with their mistress. When they resume their joint solitude, they put on their true faces again. But when they are alone, they play. Claire plays at being Madame and Solange at being Claire. And we await, despite ourselves, the return of Madame, which will cause their masks to fall and which will restore them to their true situation as servants. Sat indicates perhaps this fakeness of human behavior is because of social conditions in which human beings live. Reality is a big force. If human beings don't fake, they would not be able to survive, and therefore faking or play acting becomes integral to human existence. Martin Esslin, another famous critic, has argued that The Maids is about a game of mirrors. Martin says, Jenny's game of mirrors in which apparent reality is revealed as an appearance and illusion, which in turn is revealed as again part of a dream or an illusion, and so on ad infinitum, is a device to uncover the fundamental absurdity of being and its nothingness. Esslin is right. Although we complete reading the play, we cannot understand who is Madame, who is Solange, who is Claire. If they are acting to be Madame, are not they Madame? If Solange is acting to be Claire and Claire is acting to be Solange, are they not what they are acting to be? Don't you think human beings are not what they are acting to be? Don't you think human beings are not what they pretend to be or what they are playing to be? Of course, human beings are what they are enacting. It's very difficult for us to find out the true authentic human being because most of the time, most of the human beings are play acting. They have a mask on their face. There are only rare moments when human beings uncover their mask and show their true faces to us. Even moments of solitude, their mask remains on their face. There is no possibility that a human being can know the other human being. In fact, Janus theatre is a meta theatre where we have characters playing the roles of others within a play. It is a theatre within theatre. It is a self-conscious theatre. We'll discuss more about Janus plays in our next class. Thank you very much.